WatchDog comes to you compliments Western Union, the fastest way to send and receive money worldwide. And furniture for WatchDog provided by Hubbard's. Good evening. Welcome to WatchDog. On our program this evening, folks, we have with us Mr. Michael Archibald, financial advisor. He's also a television host. He's a man that wears many hats. And of course, Andrew, gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to WatchDog.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
This evening, we want to have a look at the economy and where we're going. And of course, we trust that Mr. Archibald can, share with us some of his views, as to how he perceives things from here on. We take a break. We'll be right back.
It's the end of the month again. My son's rent is due.
Sending money to your children studying overseas is easy. Western Union's safe and reliable service lets you transfer money everywhere in the world.
My son is doing well at school. That makes me proud.
Western Union, moving money for better.
Dutch Lady, the milk above the rest. No other milk can test. Taste it for yourself. Dutch Lady milk, it's up vitamins and nutrients. You wanna stay fit? It's great for the family. Drink it, mix it, blend it up, make a tasty drink. Pour it in your cup. Infants, children, and adults. Dutch Lady milk, yes, drink it up.
Dutch Lady, drink the milk, share the love.
Dutch Lady milk, available island-wide. Distributed by Hubbard's Agency, located at Coroni James Boulevard, St. George. Call us at 435-0769 or 435-0771.
Why this chow mein tastes so tasty? What's in it? I'd like to know. How you cook this chicken curry? Tell me why it tasty so.
Barren sauces is the answer. Barren flavor all the while. Barren makes your food taste better. Garlic sauce, Chinese stir fry, West Indian hot sauce, it's a winner. Passion fruit sauce tasting great. When your friends come round for dinner, your food so good they can hardly wait. Barren makes your food delicious. Barren makes food tasty.
For your complete range of household cleaning products, you can rely on Rinse. The 3 Ds: detergent, disinfectant, and dishwashing liquid. Easy to use, gentle on hands, and affordable pricing. Distributed by Hubbard's Agency and available island-wide. Rinse. Say hello to clean.
Unlimited talk, $75. Talk unlimited to over 50 destinations. Unlimited talk to all local landlines. Landline to mobile, 45 cents. Sign up now.
Watch Talk Clip.
We now return to WatchDog with Godfrey.
Welcome back, folks. We go straight. Mr. Archibald, the economy of Grenada is practically at a standstill, and we're hearing it. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that, if we look just around us in the OECS or the Caribbean, I mean, people there are having the same problems. But is there anything we can do differently here that can probably just cushion the pressures a bit?
I don't think any one person has an answer to that, what we can do. But what seems to be clear is that what everybody knows is the economy is in some difficulty, very serious difficulty at this point. We were talking early on in this year about growth of 1% approximately. I think the government admitted a month or so ago that is much less than that. Some people argue it is still a negative. I don't have the data to support that. But we are in a very serious situation. The problem I have is that it is not clear how soon we are going to get out of this, or what is the direction that we must take. Lots of people have ideas, but when you think of the level of unemployment, we have a working population, possible about 40,000. We have some 13,000 of those people out of work. Now, when you think of that, if it's 13,000 people and each one is connected to another 3 or 4 people, you realize how serious the situation is. Where we go from there everybody has ideas, but no one person, I think, can clearly say. What I would say, I would agree with a statement that was made earlier on, that the model of development we have been using in these islands has outlived its usefulness, and we need to revert back to what we knew in the past. We need to start producing. We're not producing. The work ethic in this country seems to have gone out the window. So we have to start going back to those basics and starting to focus when we borrow, for instance, trying to use the monies that we borrow for productive purposes. That does not mean you cannot use that money for the roads, etc., that as we have been doing in the past. But the focus was on that. We need to convert some of that money into projects that will produce something and earn us directly. So you have a combination of the two, along with your tourism. But there's no one answer. But we have to start finding different ways. What is going on is not working.
Interestingly, the issue of the work ethics, being gone, this is something that we have to bring back. Where do we start? Where do we get our people to understand, look, it is important that we produce. It is important to work hard to make things happen.
I think we're in a type of society where, again, to copy what has been said, we want to eat our food. And we have lost what we used to know in the past, where we go to work and we produce for a full day's work for a full day's pay. That has gone out the window. I'm coming to you now and I want you to give me something, or the government must give me something, or somebody owes me a living. And that seems to be the whole way in which we operate these days, rather than how can I earn my way? How do we go back there? It's hard to say, but we have to start back in the schools. And then all our leaders, whether you're in government or you're in opposition, whether you're in the union, whether in business, have to start talking and finding ways to bring that back. We can't do it. Government can't do it by itself. Opposition leader can't do it by itself. We have to get together and start refocusing on productivity, because there's really little productivity in the country.
I think Andrew might be able to do that. Andrew?
Produce more? I like
get into
Ponty said that he's doing 2 or 3 things, and frankly, so am I. And if you remember, Mike, when we grew up as young men, in fact, just about everybody who had a job in the commercial sector would get into town, would do a day's job, and by 4:30, there wasn't a cat in town. Everybody went back up to wherever they lived and got back into the land and were producing something. Now, the numbers frighten me, because if we think about 13,000 people, 3 to a household, as you say, we're looking at big numbers that are affected. And many of these people, as you suggested, are sitting waiting or looking to find a job with government or somewhere. And the politicians, for some reason, seem to feel that it is their duty to create jobs on borrowed money for largely unproductive projects, as you say, that don't generate anything new. And so it is an unsustainable model. And I don't know where the creativity and the inventiveness of Grenadians have gone. I mean, if 13,000 people would go out there and try to find employment for themselves, so that they're not depending on anybody, they're not depending on the government, they're not depending on Chester, they're not depending on me, and get to do something. And there are lots of things out there that can be done. Nobody does any carving here to sell to the tourists.
It's interesting.
You buy a souvenir in Grenada, you flip it over, it's made in China or Taiwan. When in Taiwan, made in China. And so we create nothing. We produce, as you say, little. But we expect to live a North American lifestyle. Now, people in America actually work and have discovered more and more that they need to go back to work, as have those countries that are still moving forward.
I want to comment, because and I'm coming back to you, Mr. Archibald. What do we do? You mentioned, you give the example of carvings, all right? But one of the problems we face here, I honestly don't want to say that there is no money in the country, because I do have some reservation with that. What I believe, the circulation of the money, that is not happening. So yes, you do things. Tourism, for example, we're seeing less and less of the ships coming in. You were telling me last time that even one of the cruises, they're now down to 6 calls from 51, probably 2 or so years ago. So we're seeing less and less, which means that there is less disposable income coming in to our people. So yes, you go to work, you do things, you produce. thereafter, when we get to that point, what do we do? Because there's no money for persons
but
to
you also
purchase.
you have to produce also for local consumption.
Mhm.
Now, our local market is very small, admittedly,
Mhm.
but you have to produce both for local consumption and for export.
Mhm.
And the trick is learning which one to do when.
Mhm.
I have been told that I'm too hard on politicians. But you see, politicians, in my mind, of all parties, going back from the time I can remember, promise and promise and promise. And they make people believe that when they're in government, they will give you this, and they will give you that, and they will give you the other.
So they call it benefits.
Yes. So people have come to believe that they must depend on the government. Whichever government is in power, and the politicians get angry when you say that, and they will get whatever it is. Going as far back as I can remember. But that is not how the world works. You have to work in order to earn something for yourself. And this dependency on a government or on some politician is killing us. And on the politicians must change that. But if you listen to them,
not in their interest.
If you listen to them on the campaign trail, and forget which party we're talking about here, because they get so angry and everybody gets personal when you talk about things like that. If you listen to politicians and they're on the campaign trail, when we are in power, we will do this, we will give you this, we will give you that. And over time, people have stopped feeling that they have to work. Because when their parties in power, they will give this handout. And we have to change that circle and that syndrome. Until we do that, in my mind, we're not going anywhere. And to go back to what Andrew said, we need to borrow for infrastructural projects, yes, and we can't go away from that.
Yeah.
We can't go away from that because we need the infrastructure in place. But in addition to that, some of that borrowing must be directed
into actual productive
sectors.
So you have bring something back to us.
Some kind. Now, Barbados, for instance, in the early 60s, borrowed money and built themselves the Hilton Hotel. Just as the time they became independent. Big money. But in those days where Hilton went, everybody followed.
Yes.
And so that was the rocket that made their tourism industry take off. Now, we've built great big palaces and great big edifices and all of that. But now we have to pay for them. There's no revenue coming in. They generate nothing except bills. So this, to my mind, is one of the areas we've gone wrong. But I want to address something that Godfrey said, which is that there's no money or you have a concern that is not exactly the case. Michael, the BA Clico drain, the ATM that was the Eastern Caribbean. Now, policyholders in Trinidad have formed a group and gotten something out of the government in Trinidad. Barbados have done the same. I heard earlier last week a report or a release from the policyholders group in Trinidad supporting the Barbados policyholders group. In the OECS, we've lost hundreds of millions of dollars. I know people who have lost everything practically. And they're sitting there. The government is doing nothing. The government wishes it didn't have to deal with it and go away. And nobody wants to talk about it. And those policyholders have not formed themselves into any lobby. And one of the reasons that we're feeling the depth of this recession, apart from everything else, is the fact of the disappearance of close to $500 million from our local economy.
Yes, in fact, you're quite right. Grenada has suffered more than any of the OECS countries. We have all suffered because of the worldwide economic recession and what has happened.
Yes.
But in addition to that, we in Grenada have had more than anybody else because everybody has had the Clico thing, but we have also had two others on top of that. So the combination of those drains has been very significant. You can't just remove that amount of money out of an economy and not feel it. So that has made our situation worse. And we have the SGL and we have the Cap Bank on top of the Clico.
On top of Clico BA.
So those things have really affected us to a larger degree. And what happens now is not known to anybody. Some of the Clico British American stuff has been addressed. But what has not been addressed is the executive premium particular product, which is the one which took the money out of the system. And that hasn't been addressed. And we really have not heard anything in the last year, really, about where we are with that.
Gentlemen, let's take a quick break and we'll get right back.
Dutch lady, the milk above the rest. No other milk can test. Taste it for yourself. Dutch lady milk, it's up vitamins and nutrients. You wanna stay fit? It's great for the family. Drink it, mix it, blend it up, make it tasty drink. Pour it in your cup. infants, children, and adults. Dutch Lady Milk, yes, drink it up.
Dutch Lady, drink the milk, stand alone.
Dutch Lady Milk, available island-wide, distributed by Hubbard's Agency, located at Coroni James Boulevard, St. George. Call us at 435-0769 or 435-0771.
Bop insecticide spray kills flying and crawling insects. Available in supermarkets and shops nationwide.
Get serious. Get Bop.
For your complete range of household cleaning products, you can rely on Rinse. The 3 Ds: detergent, disinfectant, and dishwashing liquid. Easy to use, gentle on hands, and affordable pricing. Distributed by Hubbard's Agency and available island-wide. Rinse. Say hello to clean.
Superior one-on-one customer service. Phenomenal products customized to your individual style and need. Fast and efficient service are all attributes that have made St. Louis the leading manufacturers of windows and doors for over 30 years in St. Lucia. And we are now pleased to extend our services to you. Try our new single-hung windows, which can be tilted for easy cleaning. Our famous casement windows, which locks with keys for added security. Our gliders, projected aluminum and heavy sliding windows, sliding and commercial doors, commercial shop fronts, and more. Visit us today, building number 19 Frequente Industrial Park, St. George's, or call us at 439-6538.
Expertly crafted and designed with exciting colors, giving you that unique standout look. Your most valuable fashion investment. Lamp. Take it with you.
We now return to WatchDog with Godfrey.
Welcome back. I want to go to Andrew. You said you wanted to ask a couple of questions.
I mean, okay, so BA, Clico in the Never Never. The bank's pointy, and you've been out of banking long enough. I think you can speak. I don't know. You'll tell me. You look at the numbers of properties that are being advertised, and the banks have a harsh position. I'm a little surprised that banks have not seen it in their interest to do a lot more, and although some people claim some banks are, a lot more of refinancing, extending terms, renegotiation, because they know like everybody else. But it seems to me that they're being driven, one, by ECCB, that if anything gets into, I think you have 3 months, and then you got to qualify it or something like that. If you were to roll these over, extend repayment terms, would that not be in the best long-term interest of both the banks, the clients, and the economy as a whole?
But some banks are actually doing that, Andrew. There's a lot more.
Lately, they're coming to this.
Yeah, there's more refinancing than we realize. There's a lot more restructuring, because the banks know that simply putting it on the market is not the answer.
When there's nobody to buy it.
Exactly.
So there's more of that going on, but you don't hear much about that. That is not news. But there's more refinancing, restructuring, and so going on, where banks are sitting down with people and seeing how you can extend it or whatever. But you made a very important point. This thing is driven by the central bank. The central bank has a set of regulations and rules that the banks have to follow. And there's only so often you could refinance or restructure an account. There's so much time you can give a person. All of that is very specified, And so they can't operate outside of those regulations. The central bank's concern is they have to make sure that the financial sector remains strong. So they themselves are driven by regulations that fit with the whole international community. So a single bank cannot just do what it wants. But banks are doing more of that restructuring than we know about.
But it took them a little time to come to the table.
Well,
with this.
The situation remains very, very difficult. And I have never seen so many properties for sale in my lifetime.
It has been quite a lot.
Next question. What impact do you think? The PM was on the news last week and saying that really people need not worry about the fact that Parliament has been prorogued and Parliament is not sitting. I actually heard someone express concern to the effect that Prime Minister Thomas is going to preside over the longest period of governance without the use of Parliament, barring Maurice Bishop. I think that's a bit of a stretch, to be quite honest. But what do you think there's an impact of that? I mean, the PM did himself say that government is restricted by the fact that they can't borrow, for instance.
Yes. I mean, I think anybody who, in the present circumstances, must be concerned when the Parliament has been prorogued. Now, whether you sit down and worry all night about it is another story, but you must be concerned because government has... The business of the people takes place in Parliament. And when Parliament is not in operation, you must be concerned. However, there's only so long that this can go on to. So while you're concerned about it, I don't know if you need necessarily to stay up at nights worrying about it because it can only...
There's an end in sight.
There's an end in sight. So I am concerned because the business of the people is not being conducted in Parliament, but I am not going to sit up and worry about it because there is an end in sight. It can only go on for a certain period. The government needs to go to Parliament for funds, etc., etc. So there's an end. I'm not going to worry too much. Do you think that this is working against the best interests of the government, or do you think their apparent strategy of trying to implement a couple of projects and getting them running, and getting something happening before they must either go back to Parliament or call an election? Well, I think it depends on if they get anything running up and going or not. My own analysis is that this thing is designed to give them some breathing space in order to get some projects and get some things happening. My analysis might be wrong, but that's what I think. So if they get some things going, then it works in their favor.
Okay.
If they don't get anything going, and it turns out that this prorogation of Parliament really was simply to extend the term in government, and then it will work against them.
Well, let me just come in here, and it's good because what I want to ask about is similar and connected in that you hear a lot of people on the streets talking. Why doesn't the Prime Minister dissolve Parliament, call elections? You hearing that because it seems as if nothing is happening. As you guys said, probably they're trying to see if they can get some projects going, but we've been hearing about that for the longest while. I mean, when the budget was read earlier this year, we heard that there's going to be X happening, Y happening, numerous. We're at the end of the year practically, and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. So people are calling for elections. Elections will be called, definitely, soon enough. In your estimation, gentlemen, how do you think it's going to go?
Just one thing. They did get 1 or 2 projects going, huh? they got Rainbow Market Square, they got the market, there's St. George's Market Square.
Okay, but we come back to the issue of those projects. They create a stimulus, they create employment, but once the project is completed, you now have to pay for those loans.
Right. But my thing is you need some of those projects to start it going, but then you need to direct your attention to more productive things. That is why when the Minister of Finance said that they were going to borrow for that hotel, I was fully in agreement, despite the fact that we are so heavily borrowed. I support the borrowing for a hotel.
It could change the nature of the game.
Change the whole nature of the game if it works. And I'm quite disappointed that one has not gone
that route.
Right? But back to your question, I mean, the present political situation, I see it really, as I told Andrew on another program, as having three distinct groups in this society at this point. The NNP, the NDC, and what I see as a whole group of people who are, call them undecided, call them independent, call them whatever you want to call them. I consider myself an independent. I will vote when I see the programs laid out by a particular party, etc. Who wins the election, in my mind, depends on who can attract those people in that swing group. Last election, in my mind, that group went for the NDC. They voted for the NDC not because they thought the NDC was the best party, etc., but because they wanted to get rid of the NNP, in my mind. They thought the NNP was there too long. They were in government 13 years, and there was a lot of baggage attached to the NNP, corruption, etc., and people said, look, we had enough. But that group of people, in my mind, they don't belong to a particular party, so you have to attract them. I don't think the NNP has really attracted them to any large degree. So they're still there. That same group of swing voters are, in my mind, quite disappointed in the performance of the NDC. So they don't know what they're doing. So to me, it is who attract this group. Or in large numbers over, because each party will attract some, but who attract?
But I take your point. But you mentioned the issue of baggage, attached to the NNP, the corruption. I mean, to date, not one little bit has been proven. I think people are now getting the impression that it was all just a matter of propaganda to get the NNP out. That, to me, can cause people to think of the NDC as, hey, look, we were not genuine in what we were saying because we have not been able to prove anything. I mean, you heard talks of lockup and all sorts of things, but to date, not a thing has happened. And in addition to that, I mean, a lot of promises was made by the NDC. One of the things that kept coming up a lot was the issue of the $400 that was promised as it relates to pension, increase in the pension. Shortly after they got in, the minister came out and said, look, we don't have money. We can't afford it.
But they haven't stopped paying public servants, forget pensions.
So I'm saying a lot of the things that, the undecided would have voted for them for, none of these things, or if any, very, very little has happened. On top of that, they've not been able to prove anything that they had placed on the NNP.
Let's take it one by one. I agree with you. And the threats and the promises of action against the leaders of the NNP have not materialized. And I think that is backfiring to some extent. Because they made so many very strong statements that they would lock up this one and etc. And none of this has I think that is backfiring to some extent. However, on the other hand, you know how we are in Grenada. Once people accuse you of something, some of that stays. So the fact that it has been proven does not mean that some people don't believe it. Because if I start accusing you of X, Y, and Z on the radio, people are going to believe it even though they don't have evidence. Look at what happens to the so-called rebel group. I mean, they have been painted
into a dark
corner.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard any real evidence yet.
Yeah.
So the constant repetition of something does stay with you, and even though it has not been proven. So while some people will say, yes, indeed, it has been proven, there are other people who have solid it wholesale.
So
I think
what I would add to that is the proof of the pudding. Goebbels said it. The propaganda
machinery works. It works. It works beautifully.
Yeah. But does this not strain the credibility of those who put themselves up as being?
I think it does. It does. And there's no doubt in my mind that part of what he's saying is correct. That there are people who say, well, look, you made all these promises. You say you're going to lock up these people and nothing has happened. So were you lying in the first place?
Yeah.
That is there.
Now, also, Andrew, quickly, and it's interesting, and I guess it can go on and on, because we also hearing lots of talks about what is happening within the NDC now. We're hearing that there's another group inside of the NDC that is probably waiting for the opportune time to get Paul from the press. I mean, you hear all sorts of things. The point I'm making is, if we could, because we don't have the proof, but if it is done regularly enough, then obviously people are going to believe it.
And that is the thing, you see, that's why the propaganda machinery works so well. Because you keep repeating a thing, and it is believed. People believe it. On the other hand, Godfrey, the NNP does not seem, in my mind, to have really attracted a whole lot of new people, and I find that is interesting, given the problems that the NDC has so publicly had. I would have thought that they would have been able to pull over a lot more people. I don't get that sense.
Or is the electorate setting itself up for a big disappointment because the economic problems are larger than the political party, and none of them to date, to my mind, has offered us any new direction or solutions? If we change the government, are we setting ourselves up?
I'm very glad you said that, because I have not heard from the NNP or from the NDC
or from
a clear path of how we are going to take ourselves out of this economic morass, and it is bigger than any party. The problems we are in is bigger than any political party, and I'm not hearing anybody laying out a path of where we are going. That's not to say that I have a path. I don't necessarily have a path, but I'm not hearing it. When you listen to the NNP, you're not hearing a clear, sustainable path.
Just vote for me.
Yeah, when you listen to the NDC, I have not heard a clear, sustainable path. One thing they have done, and a line which I like, is the 5 transformative sectors. And I think that was a first step in a new path forward. But it has been laid out there,
but no implementation.
But not enough, in my mind, has been outlined of to implement a way to go. But that at least is a direction that one can
begin to look at.
Gentlemen, it's a pity, but we out of time. Ponty, let me just give you 30 seconds quickly just to make your closing remarks.
Basically, I have come to I have an accusation against politicians, basically, that they have divided our country and our society into colors and tribes, basically, which does not help. It does not help. And in fact, until we move away from this tribalism, whether you're green or whether you're yellow, and we start looking at the problems of the country in a much more holistic manner, because it is larger than any of those tribes. NDC by themselves or NNP by themselves is not going to solve the economic problems we have. And until we start dealing with that and taking us back to some basics, we are not going to go anywhere. And I charge the politicians with that.
Andrew?
I have to endorse what Michael says. Was it Bill Clinton had a slogan years ago? It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. The politicians don't have answers, and really people need to turn inwards and start fending for themselves. And because until and unless, as Michael pointed out, we hear any party articulate a clear path forward, a way to address the economic issues, we're going to be spinning top in mud for a long time, unfortunately.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. In closing, I just want to maybe comment quickly on something Mr. Archibald said, that he has not heard either of the political parties, outline a plan or lay out a plan as to how they're going to take the country out. He also mentioned the fact that the NNP hasn't really, he doesn't believe that the NNP has attracted any additional support. What is important to note here, though, that in my opinion, the NNP does have a larger support base than the NDC. And I think going to the election, that will work in a positive way for them. So, folks, it's up to you. And if I can borrow one of 66 programs, you decide. Make the right decision when the election comes. That's our program this week, folks. Just reminding you, WatchDog is aired Mondays at 8. It's repeated Saturdays at 8. Do join us then. And remember, the dog is watching.
When is the program?
Godfrey's Wardrobe, provided by Adonis Men's Store, Spice and more, where you can now receive 50% off on clothing.
WatchDog came to you compliments Western Union, the fastest way to send and receive money worldwide. And furniture for WatchDog provided by Hubbard's.